It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
And I want to make sure, because I thought these were key things. I'm just going to go through them real quick, and you feel free to add some editorialize on them, because this is your 5 keys to a great retirement transition. This was a very intentional approach on your part. You said number 1 was a strong focus on achieving balance in your life before retirement. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you essentially, and I know we talked about it, but did you do a retirement test drive?
I did. I wrote an article about that as well. And this was probably 18 months before our retirement. And we took, I think, 2 weeks. Maybe it's 10 days. I think it was over like Thanksgiving, but we didn't go visit family. We just said, look, let's just stay home at our cabin in the mountains, which we had bought in preparation for retirement. And let's just pretend we're retired.
Right.
And let's just live as if we're retired. You know, I'm going to stay off my computer, stay off work emails. It's a quieter time with the holidays and whatnot. And we tried to mentally put ourselves into the retirement as close as you can.
Sure,
right?
sure.
And that helps, because you think about things. It's you talked earlier, is there downtime in our schedule? Well, when you do a forced mini test retirement, it's forced downtime to think about what you want your retirement to be, and it was very, very valuable for us. And I'm sure that's part of what made the transition easier.
I think another thing that, and I don't know if you did this on purpose, but I think another thing that I love is you said that immediately prior to retirement, you were saving, as much as maybe 40% of your income.
Yeah.
And I love that from the savings perspective, but this is where I love it from even a different perspective. We get people who ask us all the time, or we'll ask them, hey, how much money do you spend? And it's amazing how often they're like, oh, I have no idea. If you want a really easy way to go see how much money you really do spend, go take last year's tax return, back out how much you saved, back out how much you paid in taxes, back out how much you gave away. There's a pretty good chance that whatever number is left over, that's what you spend.
It's a good spot check, for sure.
That's how you go figure that out. Well, if you're someone who is saving 40%, you are actually test driving retirement, living on that reduced income. So you're still paying taxes, still giving, but now you only have 60% left over. I mean, that's a great way to test and see, okay, can we really live off of that withdrawal rate that we determine? And I think that's a beautiful way to test drive it.
Well, and something else we did, which I would encourage everybody to do if you can. We downsized. We sold our house in the city. We moved up to the mountains, smaller place. We took the equity in the home and we paid off the cabin. Yeah. So we were debt free about a year or 2 before our retirement. And I think if you can do that, it relieves your anxiety in retirement, obviously, but it also allows you to the point about 40%. Those last couple of years of retirement, you're debt free. You're still making the same amount of money. Just don't start spending it. Just slide that away, force scarcity, and it automatically forces up your savings in that last couple of years.
I don't think you're unusual in the fact that you go into hyper saver mode, even more so. You amp it up another degree that 2 to 3 years before retirement, because a lot of people always give the analogy, and it's a visual thing, is that when you see that you're driving up on a huge hill, like you're coming down a hill and you see a huge hill, and when I say coming down, you're usually in your peak earning years right before you retire. You usually, I know when I'm driving a car, I hit the gas a little bit to accelerate before you hit that hill. Yeah. And it's kind of the same way if you're looking to build momentum to hit that retirement just as well as possible. Mm-hmm. So number 2 on your list was intentionally accelerate your development of external interest in your final 3 to 5 years of work. This is brilliant.
Yeah, and really this, if you think about it like a slope, work has been 90%, not 90%, work is a big part of your life.
Yeah, sure.
And as you get into when you get to retirement, it's 0,
right?
So don't just do it as a cliff.
Yeah.
Intentionally ramp down that commitment. Not commit, you're still there, you're still doing your job, but your mental devotion to it, I guess, the time that you spend thinking about it, ramp that down so that it's more of a gradual slope, and start ramping up those things that are going to be what you're going to do in retirement, which is where the test retirement kind of helps, because you develop some interest. My blog is an example, right? I built that as kind of, hey, maybe this is something I'll do in retirement, maybe not, right? Try different things and start growing those and building those before you get to the retirement threshold, so that it's not as big of a cliff.
Mm-hmm. And that ties in 3, because you kind of just said number 3 was strive to find other areas in your life to develop and ramp these up as you approach retirement. And then number 4, this one was good too. Develop alternative means to develop the socialization and self-esteem that work brings, and begin that development as part of your retirement planning. Yep. I mean, that's powerful, because if you're an achiever, a lot of your success, they even Millionaire Next Door, you'll know I'm a huge fan of it. One of the things I thought was interesting when you read the Millionaire Next Door is it talks about how super successful people take great pride in like industry awards and other things. It's not uncommon for achievers to take a lot of pride in their work success. So if you're one of those people that you've done very well working and you've been successful, and you're nervous about that, go ahead and do number 4, which is to develop those alternative social networks and other things so that you don't just jump off the cliff and go from being big man on campus essentially to now you've essentially ripped the rug out from underneath yourself.
Exactly.
You talked about a lot of the retirement fails that you kind of read about and you sort of studied up on, and I think it's so interesting. We're so fortunate that we get to, in our day jobs, we get to help people as they prepare for retirement, make it to retirement, work through retirement. And one of the questions I always ask is someone, you talk about that person who's a very high achiever, loves their job, very driven, we see the other side too, where someone's like, man, I hate my job. I've been doing this for 40 years. I'm ready to get out and I'm going to retire at this age on this day. And one of the questions I always follow up with is, okay, we know exactly what you're retiring from. What are you retiring to?
Yeah.
And I'm amazed at how often people don't have an answer to that question.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, having now gone through that, if you can't answer that question well, you're setting yourself up to have a retirement fail to some extent?
I don't know if I would say it'll lead to a fail, but I would say it'll definitely go back to what I said earlier about the more time you spend prior to retirement thinking about what you want your retirement lifestyle to be, the smoother that transition will be. You're talking the opposite side of that coin. Sure. If you don't take time to plan about it and have what are you going to, the transition will be harder.
Sure.
I don't know that it would be a fail. financially, if you're great, but some,
right.
If you look at the percentage of people that go back to work, I wrote an article about this. The vast majority of people that go back to work in retirement aren't doing it for the money. They're doing it because
they want something to do.
Doing it for that.
We've seen that. We have clients that resemble that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting.
To me, that's not finding that thing.
That's right.
That gives you purpose.
That gives you purpose.
That's exactly right.
That's a powerful.
Yeah.
And I know this is a fun thing. Number 5, because this is something I will tell you, you don't even have to be retired to do this. I do a travel bucket list with my wife. We do it as a date night. We go out and we create lists of places we want to go. Now, I'll be honest, 75 to 80% of them don't get done in the 5-year period.
Sure.
But it's still a fun date night. It's kind of like buying that lottery ticket for $1 that you get to daydream and you get to think about. And you do 25%. But you went a step further. You said number 5, begin populating a bucket list of items you'd like to do in retirement. Broaden it to include categories beyond travel, so stretch yourself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it sounds like you guys are doing that. You've taken up even more hobbies, the whole exercise.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
We're more involved in some charity work and some other things. So, yeah, I think, travel instantly comes to mind when you think bucket list. Mm-hmm. I read an article somewhere about somebody, and I kind of replicated it, where you have different, like you'll have a spiritual bucket, and you'll have an interpersonal bucket, and you'll have a travel bucket. Okay, fine. But try to force yourself to think about other areas that you want to develop and try to populate those as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
So a bucket list item might be learning a new instrument, even though it has nothing to do with going somewhere. And it's not even really a financial deal, but if you've always wanted to learn how to play the guitar, like Dave Grohl, Dave, if you're listening, check us out, then, you can do that in retirement because you do have the time affluence to be able to devote to something like that.
And I think, if you've been I was in a corporate type job. I think finding things like that do kind of test, I don't know, left brain, right brain, which is which, but the other side of your brain.
Yeah.
Try to find some of those. My blogging, that to me is kind of an artistic, creative process, right? That's different than what I've been doing.
Right.
And that's fulfilling.
Yeah.
So I think if you can find things like a musical instrument, a language, those types of things are I think, especially applicable for retirement bucket list items.